Well, that was the worst game I've ever watched.
Hey guys, what's up? Little LuTV Saturday morning, so this little experiment could go completely wrong. As you can see, we're missing our third wheel. Zach is not here because we just forgot to tell him, to be honest. We kind of talked about it after the show the other day, and then we just decided late last night / this morning to do this. So it's just Andrew and I. That's fine, though. We're going to cover the slates that don't have made-up players, so we're going to be good to go here. Andrew, I see you have your coffee. You made a late run to get coffee right before the show started. Are you struggling right now, or what?
Yeah, I went to this great place called My Kitchen, and they came through for me.
Yeah, the kitchen usually does. It's a homegrown talent.
I hope
So,
I hope none of you guys actually watched that atrocious UNLV Fresno game last night.
oh my
It was
God.
not fun to have an emotional and financial investment in that game, even though I ended up barely cashing in the game I had. It was just miserable. We're talking like 20-yard field goals missed, terrible quarterback play, drops everywhere. It was just atrocious.
Dude, I thought you were going to say Stanford, Washington State, because that game was atrocious as well.
No,
That was
UNLV
like,
Fresno made that look like a top 10 matchup.
dude, I'm telling you right now that Stanford is bad. Like, Stanford is bad. They won by 17, and which should tell you, I guess, that Washington State's even worse. What is that? They're even worse. You know, the fact that they fumble on the three, they miss a field goal. Like, I had I had Stanford minus 17.5 in
Damn.
my college football pool, and I lost because they suck. So don't be afraid of that Stanford defense anymore. They can't
Do you
run the
think they
ball.
do you think they eventually get that guy McCaffrey 20 touches a game?
Dude, I don't know. He looked good, though.
He did
He
look
looked
good.
really good. I
Yeah.
mean, they were designed plays for him as well, so
Yeah.
that'll be
I mean,
interesting.
all of their running backs basically ran all over Washington State like everybody does, but he still looked pretty explosive. I would like to see him get more touches for sure.
But he was more like it wasn't just like a running play set up for him. He did a
Right.
lot of screens and stuff. So it's
Yeah.
like we haven't even seen the potential of his running. It wasn't like the matchup gave him those good plays, you know. So yeah, I definitely agree though. Max, what was his name? Max McCaffrey, I think.
Yeah. Or
That's
Christian McCaffrey.
yeah, that guy. Keep an eye on. You know, it's tough to say. You know, a Thursday night or a Friday night game. We want to see more games out of him, but definitely, I liked how he played. We're going to be talking fancy elite slates for today. There's four of them total. We don't have our made-up guys, so we're going to pass on two of them. Plus, we don't want to be sitting here for 3 hours. And we're going to be chatting the CFB Prime slate and the 10-11 p.m. slate. So this first one here is the Prime slate. I want to really dive into. These are the big games. You know, clearly Grant did a good job of putting these games together because you have a couple of top 10 matchups, and then you have an intriguing offensive game in that UNC Notre Dame game. So Auburn, Mississippi State, Oregon, UCLA, TCU, Baylor, UNC, Notre Dame. I did my write-up, and at this point I can tell you guys, because it's 2 hours till lineups lock, I don't think it matters. My number one quarterback and my number one receiver for the week are in this, and it's not surprising. It's Everett Golson and William Fuller. And they're both, to me, underpriced on Fantasy Elite. You see Golson at 24K, and you see Fuller, I think, at 10K. So looking at those prices, all the different matchups we have, are you looking at them in the same type of way as I, or are you thinking differently?
I like them for sure. There's tons of value on the slate, though, especially in the Baylor receivers as well, with Cannon at 8 and Goodley at like 11. But that so I think that makes it a little dicier in terms of where I would take Fuller. But I definitely like him and want him on my teams.
Yeah, I think you can't really go wrong with those two. I think they give you a pretty high floor, and you know Golson has been unbelievable. The only time he struggled is against Stanford, and I kind of just said Stanford is brutal,
Yeah.
but
No, that's fine. You can't expect huge games against Stanford's
yeah,
team.
you really can't. He had a good game. I think it was 2 touchdowns throwing, and then he had some rushing yards, decent passing yards. I think at that price, looking at these other quarterbacks here, Dak Prescott at 33, to me that's just too high. You got Marcus Mariota at 30K with coming off a bad game. Nick Marshall, who's been unbelievable. Bryce Petty, who's been injured, and Brett Hundley, who just keeps consistently getting sacked. So And then you have Trevin Boykin and Marquise Williams. Literally, you have about 8 or 9 stud quarterbacks in this one. So which ones are you kind of looking at for their prices on Elite?
I can't touch Marquise Williams, man. That team is just they're in that Texas Tech nosedive mode, I think, where they're just not coming out of it anytime soon.
Yeah, I think
So I'm rolling him out, and I wish they got Switzer the ball more because he's amazing, but they just don't for whatever reason. Like they have a rule where nobody can touch the ball more than 10% of the time. So
yeah, Marquise Williams. That UNC offense has been very weird. You know, they don't have really a running back that jumps out at you, but they have a really good quarterback in Marquise Williams that just isn't getting like. Why are they putting this other guy in? Was it Trubisky?
Trubisky, yeah.
It's like, what are they? I don't know what their game plan is with that. He's throwing them off rhythm. Quinshot Davis was a stud last year in terms of red zone touches and touchdowns, and now I think he scored maybe his first touchdown last week.
Yeah,
it's just been really a wreck, and kind of like you said, Texas Tech style just falling. I don't see myself really rostering anybody from UNC. I think Marquise in a 3-man is a fine option because of that upside. He has had some good games, but he also has those just tearfully ugly games.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Notre Dame's D is very good too. I don't know. I think that game. I don't think it's going to be very close. Personally, I really don't want to touch anyone on UNC.
Yeah, I really wouldn't want to. Like I said, the GPV style, the 3-man style, because there's only about 8 or 9 quarterbacks. The only way I would really touch Marquise, which is kind of funny, by the way. All these quarterbacks are 20K or up, and then 5K, which I've never seen that before in the league. But I guess that's just the upper echelon of quarterbacks we have here. Another guy I really don't want to touch is Trevon.
Did you say someone's 5K?
No, I just said there's a bunch of 5K guys here.
Oh, gotcha.
It's interesting how that goes like that.
How do you think this Baylor TCU game goes? Because obviously the offenses you could talk about how fun they are, but both teams have solid Ds too. Like Baylor brings a ton of pressure, and in the past that's always been Boykin's kind of downfall. And I mean the Baylor offense, it's great, but against better teams, they don't usually run through them as easily as they do the cupcakes.
I'm looking at this one more towards like the Oklahoma TCU game than the Texas Baylor game from last week.
Okay.
I think that TCU does obviously more damage against the run, and I don't think Baylor is one of those teams that like really relies on the run. I think with Petty, hopefully he can kind of get healthier as the season goes on. He struggled. He played really bad against Texas last week, but as everybody has known in the last couple of days now, I think Texas's defense is underrated. So I think this game is leaning more towards a higher scoring one. I don't know if it'll get to, 38-33 with that Texas or that TCU Oklahoma game. But with that said, I don't like Trevon Boykin enough to really roster him. Although at 21K, that's not too bad. I think I would really – it's just tough, man. Like if you go Golson, you're going to have to find a lot of value, and you said you had some value plays. So I think when we get into that, we can kind of show maybe – is it possible to go Golson and Marshall, or do you kind of have to save the 8K and go, or 7K and go Boykin? But Boykin's, surprised a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised at a big game, but I just think that, Baylor's defense has played well enough where they're not going to just give up a huge game. What are your thoughts on Boykin?
I think both teams play this game in the high 20s, low 30s. I don't think it's like a basketball on grass kind of West Virginia Baylor game from a few years ago that you're always kind of hoping for with when Baylor takes the field. But I think there's some offense, but I mean, we're not talking like 40s or 50s.
Yeah. All right. So these high-priced quarterbacks, barring, let's just forget about price and let's talk matchup. That way, if we can draft and we see these guys at 5K or 6K, 7K that we like, and we can say, hey, I can fit in a Nick Marshall. Can we do it? That kind of thing. Do you like Nick Marshall's matchup against Mississippi State? Do you like Mariota against UCLA, Petty against TCU, Hunley? Which one of these guys do you think you'd have no problem paying up for if you have that money?
Mariota's probably 4th or 5th on my list. I think. I just don't think he ever plays that well in big games, and it just gets reinforced every single year. I mean, it's not necessarily always his fault. He's hurt or his line sucks, so his skill players suck. But I don't know. I think I'd prefer Marshall to him. Dak does everything for that team. I think he's priced accordingly as the best, as the highest priced guy, and I think he's the number one quarterback in this slate. With Marshall, you're always worried about just how everything gets distributed throughout that offense, but he's probably 2 or 3. Who would you rather have, him or Petty, in this slate?
You talking Dak or Petty?
No, Marshall or Petty.
I'd rather have Marshall. I think if you look at no prices, if you don't look at prices, I think you have to go Dak Prescott, then Golson, then Nick Marshall, and then you're looking at maybe Mariota, But I think those first 3 are clear cut. I think to me that's like not even really a question, matchups aside.
So Petty's your 5th quarterback in this?
Probably closer to 5th.
Yeah, I think he's top 3. I think he's top 3 for me. I think I'd put Golson 4th. Petty, it's close though. Petty or Golson, I think.
See, my thing with Notre Dame is that Notre Dame literally, I've talked about this every single time I talk about Golson, they completely rely on Golson.
Okay.
Literally, 17 of their 19 offensive touchdowns have had Golson in it, whether it be, I think it's like 4 rushing touchdowns and 13 passing touchdowns. Literally, they can't score. I mean, think of their running backs. They're Cam McDaniel, Terry and Folson. No goal line back that really can steal touchdowns away from them.
Okay.
And Petty, to me, that bad game last week just leaves a sour taste in my mouth just because I'm looking at this TCU defense that I know is kind of been touted as very good, and I think they are pretty good. And like with Marshall, I think Marshall's he's just on another level right now. He's just playing great. Mississippi State's been very good against the run. They held LSU under 100 yards. Texas A&M had 160. So, but they had a good yards per carry. So it's kind of up and down for that Mississippi State defense. But I think I'd rather rely on Nick Marshall than Cameron Artis-Payne again in this matchup.
Okay.
So let's get to running backs. With that said, Cameron Artis-Payne is $14K. I just told you I'm not really huge on him. Texas A&M doesn't have a stud running back, and Auburn's going to run it no matter any way you put it. So $14K for Cap. Do you think that's a worthy price tag? Do you think you can be rolling him against this Bulldogs defense?
I do, dude. In the past, it seems like the Auburn leads on their ground game even more in huge games than they do in just games against lesser opponents. So I think Cap's in for a big day with 20-25 carries, well over 100 yards, a couple TDs.
Okay. I can certainly see myself being wrong. I think I'm just going to err on the side of caution and go Marshall, but I can certainly see myself being wrong there. And what do you think about, and I meant to say this with the Mariota, you said the offensive line issues, which they have had issues. A little bit of good news for him today. Their left tackle will be back and starting for him. So that'll be nice. His blind side will be covered, Mariota.
Yeah, but he's still terrible in big games.
He is still, I'm not condoning it. I just think that helps a little bit. For those that want to kind of jump on it and need another thing to help push him there. But you're right. He's struggled. But the thing is, his big games are against Stanford.
Yeah,
how many times has he sucked against Stanford?
You need to let me be bitter against every other Heisman candidate who isn't Todd Gurley.
Who isn't Todd Gurley? That's fine. Fair enough. Some other news out of Oregon, which has been very interesting. Byron Marshall has been pretty much said to be a receiver only now. So that'll impact Thomas Tyner and Royce Freeman. A whole lot, not really. I think maybe 6 to 7 carries gets pushed into those two guys.
I think it's just. I think that statement is more just in depth chart only. Like they'll still give Marshall some carries, I think, but I'm not going to be. I think it's tough to, unless you're in a smaller slate like Elite. Like if you're in a big slate, I can't see myself rostering any Oregon running backs.
Yeah, I think you're right. On Elite, I can see myself rolling Tyner or Freeman. They're 10K and 7K. Tyner 7K, so that's enticing. But they really haven't gotten the ground game going at all. Not anything where you really have been impressed by, which is surprising because they have so much speed on that team, so many athletes, and they just can't get it done. So looking at this this lineup, we don't see a lot of huge price guys. Which guy do you think has the best day out of all these guys?
Out of all who guys? Are you just talking about
all running backs we got here?
Give me a second. Well, I think we can rule out the Baylor guys after your excellent research of TCU's run D seems to be coming to fruition. I'm not touching Oregon running backs personally. Golston is not listed at running back, so we won't be touching any of the Notre Dame ones. Not touching UNC. I think it's got to be Artist Payne for me.
Yeah, see, it's tough. The running backs aren't sexy.
No, running back's pretty weak in the slate.
It's very weak. I can't roll anybody from Notre Dame. I can't roll anybody from Oregon, like you said. Maybe Paul Perkins a little bit. It seems nice at 12K, but I think you're right. As much as I don't like Cameron Artis-Payne, he seems to me to be a bit risky, but I think it's between him and Josh Robinson. Auburn's defense has been pretty good against the run. They've been giving up touchdowns, though. They gave up 2 touchdowns to Louisiana Tech, 1 to LSU, but their yards per carry is nice. That's like you said, it's really tough, these running backs.
As not fun as it is to think that Josh Robinson's legit, he's pretty legit.
He is, and Dak Prescott gets a lot to be said for the fact that he's like the goal line running back.
Yeah.
But Josh Robinson has scored a bunch of touchdowns, and he's coming off a game where he had 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think we're all locked into this sustained belief that we've seen the last few years, where Mississippi State just kind of rotates running backs, but he's pretty much the guy besides Dak in that offense running the football.
Yeah, this offense really relies.
He's probably a top 3 option in this slate. Granted, that's not really saying much considering the quality of running back, but I would probably rank him Artis-Payne, Perkins, and then Robinson. And I don't even know how it's up for much debate, just considering who else we have here.
Yeah, I really think so. And I don't know what you would do. What would you do if you don't get, let's say the other guy, you draft Golson or Marshall number 1, and this guy turns around and snags 2 running backs from you. He takes Robinson and Cameron Artis-Payne, which would be kind of bold to begin with.
Yeah.
But let's say he does that. What do you do? Do you pick Perkins so you're not stuck in the middle of nowhere with no running backs, or do you just risk it and say, hey, maybe I take Thomas Tyner at the end, and pray that maybe get Johnny Jefferson at 5K, I think he is. Let's see here. No, he's 8K. I wouldn't even do that then. What do you think?
Perkins, I think, Perkins delivers enough value probably where it's not a reach to take him early in the draft, but there's so much wide receiver value that maybe you just want to punt running back and double down on Tyner and Freeman, hope for a couple touchdowns between them.
Yeah, I think you double down on those 2 Oregon backs, because you just got to hope that those first 2 guys are gone, or you go Tyner and Perkins and, like you said, get some of those receivers. A bunch of receivers there to be had. I think out of the top 5 price guys on receivers, I can see myself rolling any of the first 4. And then I obviously already like William Fuller, Corey Coleman at 8K. Like you were saying, Baylor has some value there to be had. What receivers do you like here? Do you like Jordan Payton, who's really been pretty consistent for UCLA? Do you like Devin Allen, who's come on strong the last 4 weeks? Antoine Goodley, who are you thinking here?
I'm the world's biggest Katie Cannon fan, and even though he hasn't been put up the numbers since Goodley's been back, I'm staying the course, and
staying the course, huh?
Staying the course. Duke Williams is super cheap too, and you gotta expect some big plays out of Marshall through the air. I guess it's a matter of whether it's gonna be.
He's priced well too, yeah.
Coates is pretty cheap. There's so many good options.
Here's interesting thing. I was listening to the Fantasy Insiders broadcast this morning because I missed it last night. I always like listening to those guys, Ben and Maddock and Soccer Dave. Those guys do a good job. They said that Duke Williams' name is pronounced Duke Williams. Like, that's not a nickname. That's how you pronounce that name.
It's an excellent stat, and it reminds me of like 7 years ago, me and my buddies, like right when we started playing college fantasy football, my one friend was going up against Demarius Thomas at Georgia Tech, and it was a Thursday night game, so we're all watching it, and they keep talking about this guy Bebe Thomas who's going off, and we're like, okay, don't worry, it's fine. It's the other Thomas. It turns out they're the same guy.
Same guy. It makes no sense. Like, I don't get it at all. If that's how you pronounce Duke,
That's awesome. That makes me want to roster him even more.
I'm telling you right, 6.6K is a great price for Duke.
Yeah, that's a great value for sure.
And I think there's a pretty comparable player that I'm not a huge fan of his price on this slate, but there's a very comparable player in my opinion. De'Runnya Wilson, another great name. I was going to ask you, does Jamion Lewis's status impact De'Runnya Wilson? And I didn't want to kind of trap you because I really don't think it matters. Do you think it does matter? I think the fact that he's the red zone guy, the tall 6'5" receiver, and Jamion's that slot guy, the guy that plays in the slot. They're trying to make him an end guy, not really working out too well. He doesn't. It doesn't matter, does it?
No, I don't think it does. Both of them are kind of priced higher relative to other receivers on the slate, which is interesting but they're both completely rosterable at the same time. Lewis maybe a little less because you can't really. I think it's difficult to justify him being the most highly priced receiver, but De'Runnya at 11 is definitely solid.
Yeah, I like Wilson. He seems to be. I haven't seen a whole lot of Mississippi State, but from the stats I can gather and the long yards per game, he seems to be that guy that just goes deep and he connects for him, and then when they get down to the end zone, they throw him a jump ball type or maybe a high slant that he can go up and get. Jamion Lewis can't do that, so I think either way, he's fine. So I like De'Runnya Wilson. I love William Fuller. The fact that he's the number one guy, he averages like 8 targets a game. I looked at his game log for the last game against Stanford. He still got, I think it was between 7 and 9 targets against Stanford. So it wasn't like Fuller or Golson wasn't looking his way. I really like him there. And honestly, a question I've had all week, because I'm not a West Coast guy, I have no idea. It's really coin flipping for me. Jordan Payton or Devin Allen. I don't know who to go for. Do you have anything that can help me out here? Maybe Hundley's line issues make you want to lean towards Allen a little bit more? What do you think?
I think, as much as I don't want to admit it. It's like, I always confuse these guys. Peyton's the better one, right?
Peyton is the number 5 or number 9?
Or not Fuller compared to Devin. He's better than Devin Fuller, right? I always confuse them.
Yeah, Fuller is the second guy.
Okay, yeah. Peyton's been super consistent this year, which is it's very strange to see that in UCLA's offense, like a receiver that gets that many consistent touches. And I think he's got a super high floor, which I think Devin Allen, he'll probably put up a good game, but I think it's difficult to count on for more than 4 or 5 grabs. Whereas with Peyton, I think his floor is 5 or 6, and he's had much better games than that this year too. So for me, it's Peyton.
I think with Peyton, I'm starting to lean towards Peyton because of the game log, and I hope that Hundley can maybe get rid of the ball faster. I've seen some sacks where he's just running around, and it's like, well, what do you expect your offensive line to do after 30 seconds? Yeah. But like you said, Peyton has had games of his worst games are 7 catches, 74 yards, 8 catches, 98 yards. To me, that's a low risk. Like you said, that's a pretty high floor, and his price on other sites as well is pretty safe with the fact that if you're spending like $5K on Jordan Payton on DraftKings and you get 8 catches, 80 yards, that's 16 points. That's not going to kill you. Against Oregon, which should be a high-scoring game, somewhere in the high 60s, it would be hard to imagine Hundley doesn't throw at least one touchdown pass to him. I mean, how else would they score on the? You know what I'm saying? Like, how else would they possibly score 30? Let's say 28 points. How would they do that without Payton?
Yeah, I agree, man. Payton's definitely like a top 5 receiver play. If I had to break them down, for me personally, Payton's top 5, Goodley, Cannon are top 5, Duke top 5, and who's my 5th top 5?
Notre Dame's Fuller, or are you looking at maybe Devin Allen?
Give me Fuller. I'll put my faith in your research.
Yeah, I think for me it would be some sort of, I'd say probably Fuller number 1, Goodley number 2, and then I think you could interchange really Peyton and Allen. It's tough for me, but I'm leaning Peyton 3, and then probably Goodley 5 with Duke Williams kind of at like that super good cheap play there, and Darunya Wilson is kind of like the 7. Not a guy I really want to target because I was hoping his price would be more towards the 8 to 9K with the fact his targets, or not his targets, his catches always seem to be around 4 or 5. But I certainly don't mind that play. I don't think there's any tight ends here. Ben Koyak, maybe at a 5K, a cheap option there can help you out. CJ Izuma.
I prefer our shows where we just ignored that position entirely. So let's go back to that trend.
Like the dynasty draft we were in, totally ignoring the tight end position. All right, so I kind of wanted to breeze through this second slate. The first slate we had, the prime one was the prime slate, the big one. The second one here is this East Carolina game, this Mississippi game, Penn State game, LSU game. Big price quarterbacks. That's really the way this one is. Shane Carden at 38.
Yeah, what's the name of the slate?
This is just CFB 10/11 p.m.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So that's Shane Carden, Kenny Hill, 37 and 38K. Kind of outrageous. Priced out to me. I don't think there's any real possible way you can fit those guys in.
I agree.
It's nuts. As much as I think that their matchups are great, Shane Carden should put up a ton of points. I think the way you'd want to go about this one is go with their receivers to get that value.
I'm expecting a huge day from A&M, a big bounce back day in general from that team.
Yeah, blah blah, a guy that I really respect in terms of sports betting lines on LuTV, or I'm sorry, Loot Dogs. His name is Blah Blah, BLA. He's a big capper, and he's having one heck of a season right now.
Perhaps he should consider changing his name to something a little more memorable.
He likes, I think, Texas A&M -2 or -3, and it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think he's with you in the whole bouncing back.
Yeah, my buddy who's a big capper, he's also very much on A&M today.
That's an interesting one for me. I don't know what to do, but having a little juice in that game would just totally jack me up for that 9 p.m. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love watching college football, but when I have some juice on it, it takes me to a whole nother level.
Of course.
So I'm going to tell you one quarterback that I think I'm willing to take the risk on, and it's more relevant because on Fantasy Elite you need to save a little bit of money. Christian Hackenberg against Michigan. Michigan is in that same Texas Tech type of downfall. So I have no problem rolling a guy out of like Hackenberg at 16K. I heard that big sigh. What do you think about Hackenberg?
I think you should go back and rewatch our Big Ten preview where I pretty much called this Michigan downward spiral at the beginning of the year.
You had it, man. I was talking tell me about Hackenberg, and then I want to bring something up afterwards.
No, I'm on board with Hackenberg considering that just how outrageous most of the QBs are priced in the slate. He's looked pretty awful lately, but I think he can get it together against Michigan and at least get you 250 and a couple scores, which for 16K isn't bad.
Yeah.
What do you think of? No, I'll let you bring up what you were gonna bring up first.
Well, my reason for Hackenberg is they just throw it so much, like 100. I think I saw 120 times in the last 3 games. Yeah, I don't think he's reached the end zone once, but it's Michigan we're talking about. But I wanted to bring this up. What do you think would have happened in terms of Brady Hoke's tenure if last season? Remember when they went for 2 against Ohio State and Devin Gardner threw the incomplete pass? What if they complete that pass? Do you think that Hoke gets – I mean, he's like immortal at that point. He's like this going for 2 against Ohio State, ruining their season possibly because at that point they hadn't lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship, completely ruining the fact that they could have gone to a national championship at that point. Do you think that he would have had a little longer of a leash with a win?
I guess he would have had a longer leash, but he would have thrown it all away this year. That bowl game against Kansas State was an absolute disaster. So I think that would have wiped out a lot of his whatever he'd earned from the Ohio State win, because I don't think that would have changed much. That game at least.
Yeah, I think what would have happened was they gave at this point after they lost to Minnesota, it would have been that sucks, but you got to get it together. And then after Rutgers, they lose, and then it's like, you know what? Now you're gone. Instead of
Do you
like
have
3 weeks ago.
game day on?
I don't. Why?
They just showed Tyrone Swoop walking in. He looks terrified.
Does he? Dude, I love Tyrone Swoops. I wish so much that he would be good, but I just can't get behind Tyrone Swoops. You know, I called up the one time he was good, and then I was like running like crazy because honestly, that game was just crazy how he barely got to 23 points. But anyways, what other quarterbacks are we? We have Brandon Harris at 12K as a starter against Florida. You know, I don't know what to do with this quarterback situation. Is it possible you go Devin Gardner as well? Or I mean, Bo Wallace has to be a better option than Gardner.
I wanted to bring up Wallace because I think his price is very fair at, was it 26K?
Yeah.
I love how Zach refers to bad Bo Wallace as big game Bo. But
Yeah.
I'm sure Zach's I'm sure Zach is certain that big game Bo is going to show up today, but against Texas A&M's defense, even if Texas A&M does blow them out, you would expect that Ole Miss is able to put up a good amount of points in that game regardless.
Yeah,
And,
you have. Yeah, you have to. Yeah. I think you're right. I think you'd have to think that they'd have to score some, and they don't do it on the ground. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you'd have to think that Bo Wallace would score some. And really, I mean, do you feel good about Jeff Driscoll? You know that Trayon Harris ain't going to come in for him, but that's the only bit of confidence I have in that is that he's guaranteed to play. They ain't going to put in Morningwig, that's for sure.
Morningwig might be the worst Division I quarterback of all time.
He's like, you know what it is? It's like he's Nick Montana. Like, he goes to a big school because of his name.
Yeah.
And he's just, like, you see him play. Like, Nick Montana played, I think, his freshman year for Notre Dame.
He lost to Georgia Southern last year.
Yeah. And you're just like, what happened to make this, like, why? You keep asking yourself why. Like you're Nancy Kerrigan or something. Other quarterbacks here, I don't see anybody, man. Do you think Mike White, East Carolina's given up some points. If Michael Brewer could throw 3 touchdowns against them.
Don't do that to yourself.
No.
I wish. I can't believe Brandon Harris didn't look better last week. Like, I expected him to. I guess the stage is just a little too big. He's still going to be awesome down the road, but I guess it's tough to really trust anything out of LSU's quarterback tandem. Like, it's tough to bank anything, right?
Yeah, I think what you do here is you go Brandon Harris. I think you go Hackenberg. I think you go Bo Wallace as your quarterbacks. If you end up getting the 2 cheaper guys, I think you just have.
You're okay with Brandon Harris?
I am, only because he's so cheap. Like,
is he starting for sure?
I believe so. We can look it up and make sure and tweet about it afterwards. But if he's starting, I would rather roll him and just save the money to go with some of these receivers, some really good options. And running back is kind of sketchy as well here. Running back, we have. I mean, who do you feel comfortable with? Matt Jones against LSU, maybe?
I'm trying to remember. I wish Zach was on here. Who's the guy who's replacing Breon Allen because Allen's hurt? It's like Chaz Thornton or something. Is he in this slate? It looks like he's not.
It's not Chaz Thornton.
Oh, what's the guy's name? I can't remember.
We have ECU guys too in the chat.
They should. Yeah. Well, are they shouting it out?
I'm telling Bones. Bones is our residential ECU guy to go with. Obviously, site owner Adam Hummel. Let's see here. While we wait on that guy's name, we'll get that to you for sure.
Should we discuss how at this point probably half of your Twitter followers are ECU graduates?
I don't want to because I feel kind of like I have done my school a bad deed by doing that. You know what I'm saying? A couple of value guys here to mention while we're waiting for this ECU news. Terrence McGee and Kenny Hilliard are both 5K. They have that like trifecta of playing, kind of like the Stanford running back situation with Fournette being the 3rd guy. I think Hilliard hasn't gotten a whole lot of carries lately. Do you have like an idea of which one of those guys you would want?
Between Hilliard and nah, dude, I don't really want either of them.
Yeah, I think that would be more one of those plays where you pick him if you end up trying to get Kenny Hill or something.
Fournette's fairly priced at 9,100. What's it called? What do you think of your boy Devion Smith at
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there.
at a little under 10K?
I don't mind it because he's starting. He's the only guy. I don't think.
I mean, you got to think Michigan has no faith in their quarterback play at this point. So if they're going to do anything, it's going to be on the ground.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the problem, I don't know, man.
I mean, I see this game being it's going to be a pretty awful game. Like, if there's anything else on TV, I'll probably be watching that.
Dude, definitely, 100%.
That being said, I think it trends more towards like a low-scoring game where Smith maybe gets 20 touches.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're guaranteeing yourself 18 to 22 touches with Smith, and that's why I don't mind it. I'm definitely not touching Penn State running backs.
right.
And I don't think you can really touch Matt Jones for 16K. This seems like that position you just try and run like hell, like the earlier one, and just get somebody and go. What is the Texas A&M running back situation? Is Carson healthy? Williams healthy? Do you know?
I think they're both healthy, but I mean, if you can help it, I don't think you really want to touch the running backs there.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's just Kenny Hill is the show there. Yeah, they're both healthy. There's no report on them. Let's see here. I'm not touching Ole Miss running backs. I think really the guys I'd be looking at, Fournette, Devion Smith. Oh man.
Did we get anything from your ECU posse on
Nothing yet, man. I guess Bones is
running back?
All right, so yeah, it's Chris Hairston who is the other ECU back, which I thought it was. I didn't want to say it though. Chris Hairston is that second guy that would be getting the carries if Brown
He's only
out or whatever.
6,700.
I think you could easily roll him, and I think Marlon Mack. I think he's healthy, and he's had some big games. I don't see why you wouldn't take a chance on him at that price. Let's see if we can make sure. Here's Marlon, South Florida. Here, where are we? Yeah, Marlon Mack is healthy. I would say he's an option, a big option at 8.9K. Some of those guys there. Let's move to receiver, though. A really good bunch of guys here that you can spend your money on. I wouldn't really go cheap here and just Isaiah Jones, Justin Hardy, high price, but I think that Hardy would be the guy I would want easily over Jones. Jones is that PPR option, so he's still a good play, and he's starting to score a little bit. But I think I'd rather have Hardy over Jones, don't you?
Oh yeah, every single time, man. Hardy's great, but I mean he's clearly the go-to receiver. Jones is solid, but I mean there's no real reasoning for thinking that Jones should live up to a higher price tag than Hardy.
Yeah, and Josh Reynolds has to be a really big play with Kenny Hill's projected total and the fact that he's been like the touchdown guy for him lately, right?
I guess. I really don't want to admit that Josh Reynolds is someone you can count on, but I mean he's putting up the stats. So.
Let's see. Laquan Treadwell has started to come on strong. He only had 5 catches, I think, for 55 yards and a touchdown last week. But Bama and
I have faith in Treadwell, I think, though.
Yeah.
At 11K, I love that personally.
Yeah, I mean, with that stat line, he still had a good game, and that's big game Bo. So a little less of a game. Would you say this Bama game or the Bama game last week was bigger than this week's game against Texas A&M?
Bigger in what sense?
Like, if you're Bo Wallace, are you shitting the bed more because of that Bama game, or are you shitting the bed more because of the Texas A&M game? Because this is the thing you have to look at when looking at those receivers, because it's really heavily dependent on Wallace.
Yeah, but this game's going to be back and forth, up and down. Like, it should be a fun game, regardless of how big game Bo is in this game. Like, I don't know. I expect points to be put up, and I expect a good game out of Treadwell.
Yeah, I do too. He's had 2 good games in a row. Devin Funchess, disappointing just because of his quarterbacks. Man, if he had good quarterback play at all, that he just would have a good season. Man, it's just annoying that it happens like that. What other Texas A&M receiver would you rather have, Speedy Noyle or Ricky Seals-Jones?
I was so on board with Seals-Jones before the year started, and he's just been a disappointment. I liked how in his first game back from injury, they really got Noyle involved last week. So I think I would roll with Noyle.
Yep. Same for me. I'm disappointed with Seals Jones, although he had a high catch total the other day. I think it was.
Yeah.
I still would rather have Speedy Noyle. They're getting him more into it. And, I think Josh Reynolds is a bigger receiver. So if they're going to throw to Reynolds a lot, I think they'd also want to complement it with Noyle with different routes. Deshaun Hamilton, if you're going to roll Hackenberg, you got to think Deshaun Hamilton is the guy you'd want there with him. At least he's cheaper than Geno Lewis. Andre Davis is healthy for East.
I haven't looked at the
Florida.
stats. I haven't looked at the stats personally, but I know Lewis and Hamilton at the beginning of the year were having big game after big game. But as Hackenberg slumped, how have their totals been consistent or no?
I'm going to look that up right now. Right now, Hamilton's got 36 catches to Geno Lewis's 29. I'm going to guess that they haven't had huge games since because they had a couple of 10-catch games in a row. Last 2 weeks, Deshaun Hamilton has had 10 catches, 165 yards, obviously lower than his first 3 weeks. And Geno Lewis has had, let's see here, 9 catches for 115 yards. So I think Hamilton is clearly the guy you would want. Maybe he gets his first touchdown against the hapless Michigan defense. What LSU receiver is like the guy you would want? Travin Doral or Dupree?
So difficult. I personally kind of like them both, but Florida's pretty solid against the pass. And, I mean, you've got a freshman quarterback at the helm. I think both are ownable, but I'm not reaching for any of them in an elite snake draft because I think there's a good chance at least one of them gets shut down, probably.
Yeah, that Hargraves for Florida is really good. It just depends, I guess, on which one he gets targeted or matched up on, which I don't know if we'll really know. One guy, or two guys really, that are kind of going to be flying under the radar. Their prices are lower, and you might pass over them. Cam Worthy should be back for East Carolina. I think with that high-flying offense at that price, I wouldn't mind it at all. Demarcus Robinson has had some big games with Driscoll under center. I wouldn't mind paying $7K for him. I think those two guys could have huge games. Worthy had a huge game against Tech, and then Robinson had a huge game against Kentucky. Are you on board with those two as well?
I can get behind Robinson, I guess, but if you're really putting faith in that Florida passing game, you've got to reassess your priorities in life, I think. But I mean, Robinson, he's had big games, so I mean, he's fine as an option. I don't think I'm reaching for him though.
No, I think he'd be like towards 7, 8-ish in terms of ranking.
He had that huge game against Kentucky. I assume his numbers have kind of evened out.
His numbers since then have really been disappointing. I think he catches 30 yards, 1 catch, 25 yards. Let me look up the exact stats here. Let's see. Kentucky since that. Oh my God, that huge Kentucky game. 2 catches, 14 yards against Bama. 2 catches, 19 yards against Tennessee. So appropriately priced, that's for sure. I just think if you're looking towards the line of the 8 or 9 receiver, I think you could go there. Would you take the chance on Worthy with a better passing attack, but he's like the 3rd, 4th option who's been like coming off suspension, or would you rather go Robinson, you think?
What was he suspended for?
I don't know. Party and BS.
What does your posse say?
Let's see. Cam Worthy. Here.
I mean, I know most of the catches go to Hardy and Isaiah Jones in that offense, but they have guys besides them who step up too, right? It's not just like Worthy's going to step in and be the automatic 3rd option. Like I can't remember who it was, but they've had other guys put up decent games too.
Yeah, they have. Worthy only has 11 catches on the year, but he's only played in 3 games. He had that big game against Tech, and then has sat for the 2 games since. Since those other games, you're looking at like Trayvon Brown, Jimmy Williams. Those are 2 other receivers that have had big name numbers. Yeah, Trayvon Brown has 4 touchdowns.
I can get behind Worthy.
Yeah, and I think Brown's numbers are a little inflated because he had 2 touchdowns against UNC. You know, that game is always tough to determine what you really think about it.
Receiver really looks to drop off a cliff in this slate. Like there's 5 to 6 like top options, and then after that you're kind of scrambling, I think. So
Bones says depends on if South Florida plays man, and I don't think they do.
no, if you're expecting that game to be close, I don't know what to say because it's not going to be.
He says Cam got his yards in one game against Virginia Tech because of man defense, which is what Virginia Tech does. They play man and push you and press you. I think Worthy's got some good height on him. I think those are really the two big slates. Like those are the slates I would really target. You have this other prime 2 slate that's got that Arizona, USC, Colorado State, Air Force. I like the quarterbacks in the Air Force game. Make sure you realize that Nick Wilson is likely out for this game. Terrace Jones-Grigsby has a big price tag.
Why is Wilson out?
I think he's just banged up.
Sucks. He's so good.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable, and he's had a lot of carries.
How do you think that game goes? Have you seen the point spread in that game?
The Arizona game?
Yeah.
Yeah, Arizona's like underdogs by like 3 or 4, aren't they?
At home, they're 2.5-point dogs. I mean, they're begging you to take Arizona, but it is such a letdown game for them. Their last 2 games following huge wins. 2 years ago, they were ranked in the top 25 for the first time in like 10 years and lost 66-10 to UCLA. And last year, after they beat Oregon, they got killed by whoever they played. So I assume that's why that line is built that way. That being said, you know how I feel about Arizona.
You have a special place in your heart for Arizona.
Oh yeah, they take up a good amount of room in my heart. That's not.
To be fair, you were on them from day one when we did the Pac-12. I think you said from day one too. A new Solomon. You said the running back, whoever they choose, is going to be good, which both have been good.
Yeah.
And then, man, you killed it. I'll give you props. You got Jacoby Brissett and Arizona's offense are your like pride and joy right now.
My heart basically goes Margaret DeVico, Georgia, and Arizona, and there's not much room for other things in there.
Is Margaret your fiance?
Yeah, that is her.
Very nice. Watch out Facebook requests because she's probably going to get hit up with a bunch of them.
Dude, she subscribed to my the beat Raiders feed that I put together, and now she gets followed by like random gambling junkies and shit. She's like, who the hell are these people?
It's dangerous when you live this lifestyle, Andrew. It's dangerous. You don't need to be putting her in this situation.
That's great.
So I want to chat a little bit just in general about all the different games here. We have, honestly, I don't have enough TVs to go to noon. Not only are there some good games like Missouri, Georgia, I just want to watch, period, but I have a lot invested in the fact that I think Chubb is going to have a worse game than Pender. But then the Florida State game is on TV, and then Red River rivalry is on TV, which I have money. Everything is going on at noon. Don't have enough TVs. If you have 2 TVs, which 2 games are you watching? And give me the reasoning. It can be fantasy related. It can be matchup game related. Which games are you going to watch, you think?
Man, I don't know what time the UGA Missouri game is, but
that's noon.
Yeah, okay. I want to. Obviously, I'm an UGA fan, but I want to see how Chubb does. Have you seen Mark's price on DK?
Yeah.
He's cheap, dude. How are you not more on him?
I'm scared. I live my life scared.
Dude, I could throw against that UGA secondary.
I know, man, but like at this point, I have 10 lineups. If I change any, I'm really scared. Like I'm really scared to do something.
Well, at least it's only your money, so it's not like you're laying anybody down.
That's true. I'm not letting anybody down with this. So you said what? You have like 6 or 7 lineups. What quarterbacks? I don't want to like give it away. There's probably like 4 people listening.
Dude, I'm just starting to put them together. Like I'm the prime example of how you don't want to manage a bankroll. Like I've been putting them together as we've been doing the show. So far, Mark's the guy I'm biggest on though.
Okay, so what do you think about I don't want to talk about Raheem Kate. I think he'll do well. Siler Miles. I think the hot button topics in terms of like people that are really one way or the other, or the Chubb issue, which I know which way you're going to go with that, or the Siler Miles. Great matchup. Is he going to do great or is he going to do terrible? Which side are you on?
I don't think it'll be terrible, but pretty much we've seen, not just this year, but last year as well, when he started a game and filled in for another one. Like the offense doesn't really run through him. They score a bunch of different ways. Like I know it's Cal. I think he can get to 30 points, but I don't think he's putting up 50.
Man, look at his game log and tell me there's potential. I mean, even when he threw 3 touchdown passes against Georgia State, he still scored 18 fantasy points. And if he was Mock's price at 6K, I would have him more than the 1. And honestly, I have him in 1 just to like cover.
What is he? What is his price?
7,500.
That's insane. Yeah, I might put him in one lineup, but I'm not trying to hitch my bankroll to him.
I'm really just it's the cover your butt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To keep yourself from, and that's also my one lineup with Chubb. So I'm covering my butt completely on one lineup there. That's an interesting lineup in itself. Do you have anything for Justin Thomas against Duke? Duke's defensive end, one of their defensive ends out. Justin Thomas, he had really bad stats last week, but like if you look at, and DeAndre Smelter did as well. He didn't catch a pass, but they also, Miami couldn't stop anybody on the ground, so they didn't even attempt to do any of that. What do you think about Thomas against Duke?
I have a tough time ever getting behind like Georgia Tech quarterbacks and saying, yes, I think this is going to be – I'm very confident that this game the quarterback is going to have a great game. I think it's just too difficult to really feel confident in that. But at the same time, yeah, sure, he could go off. I think it's just difficult to feel confident about that. Yeah.
All right, 2 quarterbacks really about the same price. Would you rather have P.J. Walker against Tulsa with that unbelievable matchup, or would you rather have what's his name, Matty Mock against your Bulldogs?
Good one. Give me Mock, but I will be owning
P.J. Walker.
When I made my 2:30 a.m. post Fresno lineup, I think I had Walker in it. So.
I think the thing with Mock is that, let me look here. I think P.J. Walker has the potential for a 40-point game.
Oh,
I really do.
Yeah.
I think Mock would
probably. I'm throwing them both in the same lineup right now. Actually, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Dude, if you do that, you could really put together a nice lineup. Mock has done 40-point potential this year against Toledo.
Dude, this pricing on DK is absolutely atrocious. Everybody is so cheap. It just makes it's so difficult to sift through.
Well, here's the thing that they've done. Here's what I've realized that they've done. They jack up all the studs. Dak Prescott, Gurley, Gordon, Kevin White, Cooper. These dudes are high, okay? And then everybody else seems to be underpriced. Like Sterling Shepard at 7K is just giving me nightmares because I don't want to go against Texas defense, but Oklahoma's going to score, and his price is way too cheap for his talent.
You think they're going to score?
I think Oklahoma scores 4 touchdowns.
Okay. That's not scoring. This is college football. This isn't the NFL. Scoring is at least 7 or 8 touchdowns.
I mean like a safe 4. I mean the over-under is 46. So if they, let's see, and Oklahoma's minus 17, that puts them at, they're on track for like 30 points according to Vegas. But like at that point, who scores for Oklahoma? Who scores for Oklahoma? Tell me right now who scores for Oklahoma. Perrine, Knight or Sterling Shepard?
Your boy Perrine.
Dude,
he scores 7 touchdowns.
It's so tough. It's so tough. Now, what do you make of this whole?
Tyrone Swoops probably throws 2 to the Oklahoma cornerbacks by himself.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised at all. What do you think about Terry Swanson? There's news that Kareem Hunt could be out, and he's likely out. If he's out, would you go Terry Swanson?
That's a Zach question. You can't put me in that position.
Zach, where are you?
I don't know anything about him. Toledo? Who do they get? Iowa State.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this guy Swanson good?
He had a huge game against Western Michigan, 19 carries, 172 yards, and a touchdown, and like 3 catches. Game before that, he had 11 carries for almost 100 yards and a touchdown.
All right, he's going in my lineup.
He's 4,400. Dude, I'm telling you right now, go Pender and go Chubb, or just go one of them, and you go like O.J. Howard or Hunter Henry at tight end, or even Max Williams.
I definitely like Henry at minimum price. I had him in.
He's starting to get better, and then you just build, dude. You just build from there, and you're fine. Because I don't see a receiver that, like, I love Kevin White.
Yeah.
I love him in Fantasy Elite slates. I love him everywhere else, but I'm scared that I'm not going to – I'd rather have Melvin Gordon at 8,600. If you're giving me the same price for them, any site, I take Melvin Gordon over Kevin White. So I can't do that. So
that's a great point.
I had
Kevin White. We need to stop talking so you can stop making me adjust my lineups.
And I'll leave you with this one thing. I love a bunch of 5K receivers, and Darunya's got a good price. You know, what do you think about Jordan Taylor from Rice against Army? Anything there? The big, tall guy?
Yeah, man. I think he's pretty good. I can
roll. Receiver. Hasn't done a whole lot, but Ben, what's his name? Pritchett from Fantasy Insiders has been talking about how Army struggles against tall receivers. That's a lot of research. Good for him.
That guy. I don't know how all the information he has fits in his brain. Like he's ridiculous.
I don't get it either. He does a bunch of research. I feel bad for his wife or his dog or something because they get zero attention, it seems like. DeAndre Smelter's got a solid price. There's one more guy I wanted to bring up. I'm about to hit you with one right here. Angel Santiago for Army. 4K.
How can you confidently go that route with A.J. Sher getting a good amount of the snaps and probably starting?
Sources close to my sources, close to their sources, say he's starting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I've been reading.
Maybe one lineup, but I think you're reaching for a guy whose ceiling is probably equivalent to a lot of other guys' floors. But at 4K, I can see why you're doing that.
Okay. Let's look at. I want to real quick, and I'll tell you why I like Angel Santiago. As long as he's playing, he's played in his last 3 games. He has 17 fantasy points, 26 fantasy points, and 21 fantasy points, and he hasn't even started those games. I don't believe. Now it's dangerous because AJ Sure has played well, but Santiago's the senior. Or at least the oldest guy. He's super cheap. I mean, if you're telling me right now, would you turn down 20 points from Angel Santiago?
You make a compelling argument.
I'm just saying, it's a risky play. I have him in 2 of my 10 lineups, and I completely understand it. I have him in a lineup with like Deshaun Watson and Mike Williams, which I think is very risky, but I want some coverage of that.
What's risky about that? Dude, Deshaun is the greatest player ever.
Dude, he's great, but he has had 2 good weeks, one of them against UNC, one of them against NC State. They're not exactly legit.
Did you watch the Clemson-NC State game last week?
I did not.
It might have been the most one-sided game I've seen all year. 41-0 doesn't do it justice. Like, literally, and my boy Prezek could not get a first down. I think Brissett is shaving points. It looked that bad.
It was, yesterday's Washington State game seemed like shaving points in some way. What would I want to say here? And the one reason why Louisville's defense has been really, really good, they haven't played like a bunch of legit offenses like UVA and Miami, but Watson's price has skyrocketed. I'm willing to put him in one lineup and pray that it just doesn't come back to bite me.
You're right. It did skyrocket for sure at 8,200. That's tough.
It's a lot of money, especially with guys like Cato and Everett Golson and Jared Goff. Some guys there that I'd rather go with. But anyways, any final thoughts? Anything you want to know? Anything you want to discuss on your end?
If Chris K comes in first in the tailgate today, who's going to be the player outside of your Notre Dame guys who gets done for you? Who's going to be the guy that you've got that, damn, that guy was only 2% owned and he lifted me to the title?
All right. I'll do it both ways. I think if I win, it's going to be because Melvin Gordon goes for like 60 points, 50 points, and I have a bunch of him, and I think that people are going to get kind of scared off the price. He's going to be higher owned, like 25, 30%, but that's going to be nice there. But on the other end of it, like the 2%, I think it's tough because I don't. That's the thing I'm worried about my lineups. I don't think I have enough of these guys that are smaller.
What do you think of Jamison Crowder? He hasn't had a big game yet. Are they just not? Is there a good reason for that?
I don't know what they're doing out in Duke land, but
I would throw to him 20 times a game.
I would too. I'm not going to be on that. I'm really not. I saw him and I was compelled to use him, but he's too close to guys I like. All right, so I just don't know if I have enough low-end percent guys, but I would say probably a guy like Jordan Payton or Devin Allen is what's going to like catapult me, it seems lame, or maybe the fact that I'm using Pender instead of Chubb in every lineup pretty much would be the thing. Like I think a lot of people, if you're playing a GPP, I think you take the one that you think is less owned, and I think that's Pender. I think so many people are going to be on Chubb that Pender is the way to go.
Why do you think that Pender necessarily gets so many more carries than Dalvin Cook?
Because Cook hasn't done a whole. He's the clear starter. They've mentioned him as the starter. Jimbo Fisher has said starter.
Okay.
Carlos Williams was starting to get more carries. I mean, it's like Citadel and stuff like that, but. All right, so I'm not muted again. So I want to lean that way. I can certainly see how Pender gets like 13, 14 carries, but against NC State, a high-scoring game for Florida State, he had 21 carries, Carlos Williams did. And let me look at some of these box scores here, and hopefully this reaffirms what I want. Yeah, I mean, Pender's just dynamic with his yardage anyways.
Okay.
It's tough because I can certainly see it. I'm hearing you're a UGA guy. What do you think? Like I've heard now that like Isaiah McKenzie could get carries, that Douglas could get carries, that Keith Marshall could possibly be back. Is there any truth to the Keith Marshall? The thing that would scare me the most is the Keith Marshall, and then I'll come back to this thing I just learned from box scores. Go ahead, Keith Marshall.
I think that even if Keith Marshall's back, it's very naive to think that he's close to being the player he was the first 1.5 years of his career at UGA. I mean, I wouldn't even play him the rest of the year if I was UGA. Like, he's just not shown anything that he's anywhere near fully recovered from. Aaron, the play that he tore his ACL on, by the way, is so clearly Aaron Murray's fault that he leads him right into this defender's helmet. Like, it's disgusting. But
it's disgusting. It is.
But I'm not worried about him at all. I think it's going to be Chubb, and more Chubb. He's so good and so much better than any other option to have.
It's tough, man. I get bullish, I get stubborn, and
Yeah.
And once I have an idea and I like kind of going against the grain, I kind of stick with it, and sometimes it leads me to red.
I respect that.
Here's one thing I did. I was looking at with the box scores. The only game Calvin Cook has outranked, like had more attempts carries wise, is the Citadel game, which is clear because they were blowing him out. Otherwise, Pender's outran him in terms of carries. Pender, even when Pender was out, and that was against NC State, Cook got 6 carries for 45 yards, which is a good day in terms of yardage, but he only had 6 carries. It makes you wonder, like, do they have confidence in Cook? Like, what would have Pender have done? Like, would he have the same 6 carries, or would he have maybe 10 to 12? Like, I'm going to just go with my stubborn senses and think that Pender's going to get 15 carries and a couple catches, and I'll be happy with 15 points if that's all he gives me.
Listen, man, I can respect anyone who has an opinion as long as you stick by it. It's better to feel that way about something than just not being willing to take a stance. So.
And then one thing we want to talk about, Cam Worthy. One thing Bones, my ECU guy here, he says that Cam Worthy, while suspended, wasn't allowed to practice. So that'll be a big thing. I think maybe you kind of lean off him in that situation, because if he's not practicing for 2 or 3 weeks, that's really tough to do. What do you? One last topic, and then we'll get off. Jameis Winston is currently going to play today. Let's say for some reason they announce that he's not playing because of all this weird stuff with impeding, the case. Do you think that would benefit Pender or hurt Pender?
It's Syracuse, so I think it benefits him.
I think it would too.
It's not like he's going against Clemson's D, in which they struggled really to get anything going. I think you could turn around and hand it off to him, and things are going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think that they would do screenplays. They would do anything because I don't think McGuire is playing. So that would be really.
What's the deal with that? Why is McGuire not the number 2 quarterback anymore?
I think he got hurt.
How did he get in the Clemson game?
I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, you got all those backups are probably interchangeably average to some degree. So
yeah.
we don't need to waste time researching Sean McGuire.
Yep. All right. So everybody, good luck today. I really, really am nervous about today. I don't have enough TVs. I'll be flipping my side TV about 100 times because there's so many guys I have going. I'll be watching the Army game, which is sad, but I will be watching the Army game as well today. Good luck.
You were the reason that CBS Sports Network exists.
Oh my God, they really cater to me, and they have really hit the spot. Like, all they need to do is throw some Chick-fil-A commercials in there, maybe some local golfing commercials in here, and I'm stuck on CBS Sports Network. Everybody, good luck today. Andrew, appreciate you hopping on. Zach is a no-show.
Of course, buddy. As much as a tall task it is to commit to waking up before I like to on Saturday, this was great, and we should do it every week.
Yeah, as long as I have a Saturday off, man, this is fun. I like doing this, and I know that Grant appreciates it, and I love talking Fantasy Elite. So everybody, good luck today. Enjoy. I'll be on Lou Chat and on Twitter all day, so feel free to hit me up, questions or whatnot about Late Slate. See you guys later. See my wrist sprint. See ya.